Well, guys, welcome in this channel. This is all a raw talk without any cuts, which basically means that whatever that I'm going to be speaking throughout this very video is all going to be unscripted. Uh, you could compare it with other videos as well of mine, but I like to bring in the difference between an unscripted video. So in that one, you are just speaking constantly without having to think, or without in simple terms is without having any prior script. So that's something that I'm not covering in this very video. So without wasting any time, let's just start off with the topic. In case you're wondering why I'm speaking in this very accent, you see, I can use both accents. I can speak like this also, I can speak the other way also, so it's quite feasible for me to speak in either of the accents that I know personally. So it's just a matter of choice that I've picked this one for this very video. You might find me using a different one in other videos. So that's just a matter of choice. It's not out of me showing off that I am able to speak this very accent or use this very accent. It's just a matter of choice. One more time to remind everybody. On top of that, you may also have a taste of different accent when you come close to me and you have a conversation right in front of me. So that would be a different scenario, believe me. Now, keeping all of that aside, let's just focus on the topic, and that is the biggest mistake that beginners do. I'm targeting English beginners, of course, as this channel, the entire channel is dedicated to discussing English stuff. So being as English beginner or learners, the biggest mistake that they commit, let me be very honest. When I say very honest, I mean to say I'm being dead honest from the bottom of my heart. And it pains when I say this because I too have been in that very situation. I too have gone through all of those traumas, you could say, all of those moments. Of course, not traumas, but for some people, it might be uh, taken as traumas. They might take it as traumas because we do not know what goes in other people's life. So let's say what I've heard people, when I say people, I'm referring to learners. You might wonder, where did I hear all of this? You see, I have been not just having conversation with people for over a decade now, but also I have been actively tutoring on an online platform. So you could take my words for granted when I say that. Okay. So I've heard people saying, or learners, asking, this is actually a mistake what I'm going to say now. They've been asking, give me some tips, give us some tips to improve. See, let's understand, let's analyze, we'll dissect everything. We'll come to know to the very deep point, to the deepest of them all. What's the problem? Where does the problem lie? What's wrong in asking for advice or pieces of advice? What's wrong in that? If somebody asks me what's how my routine should be, you see, in case you're wondering what the hell am I even talking about? Why is it so important to discuss something related to English? Why is it so important to discuss about the problems faced by beginners or the mistakes committed by beginners, English beginners? In case you're wondering all of that, well, the space is dedicated to discussing such topics. So, yeah, that's why we're discussing that. I'm discussing that. So, that is a mistake when they ask that what should I do to improve my English? For instance, if I'm having a conversation with someone supposedly a beginner level English speaker, and momentarily they ask me that they say that you speak really good. Can you please suggest me some tips that I can use, that I can put in my daily work, in my daily routine, so that I can also speak better. I can also improvise my speaking skills. What's wrong in that? You know, uh, ethnically, there's not ethnically, but I mean to say that if you go by technical terms, yeah, it's not wrong. One can ask anything, not just asking for tips, but literally anything. That's on them. Now, what if I, uh, I'm saying inadvertently, and I'm saying that hopefully that people don't do it intentionally. But what if I inadvertently give you the incorrect tip, advice? Sorry. So it does happen in situations, for instance, that you, as a beginner, have found a speaker on an online platform. You both are talking to each other, and that very speaker is just a little level ahead than yours. And you do ask them, this person asks them, how do I improve? And the other person who gets the question says that speak 24/7, do the speaking practice. If the other person that has got the question says that always practice speaking, this person does not mention anything about listening. This person does not mention anything about active listening. This person does not mention anything about, you know, loud speaking, reading aloud practices. I mean, there are certain practices that really help you stand out as an effective speaker. So, what if this person is not even eligible to give you a piece of advice? You're not sure of that because you clearly just met that person. It's a stranger person. So, you just met that person, and now you are wanting to get some, you know, fruitful suggestions or recommendations from this very person. Second scenario is that the person is a legit trainer. Let's say that you asked me about what to do in order to speak like an effective speaker, what to do to acquire better skills, communication skills in English, spoken skills. It would surely depend. You see, the beautiful thing about speaking is that it's not constant. The thoughts are not constant, they are progressive, they are dynamic. I may say this, that focus on listening, focus on, I would never say focus on vocabulary because that's a different part. You do that once you acquire a stage, once you are already once you already are an established speaker. So you get plenty of time to get on get on the line with the vocabulary practices. So what I'm saying is that it will depend on situations. Why it's so wrong to ask for pieces of advice or suggestions or recommendations when you are a beginner? You already know the answer, what to do. It's not that the other person is supposedly a tutor, supposedly an expert, supposedly a better speaker, an effective speaker, let's say a public speaker. It's not that they only know what are those secret practices. You for sure know what are those secret practices. There's nothing else apart from speaking, apart from listening, apart from reading aloud. There could be some newly developed practices, but those are also the roots are in the basic practices, which are listening, reading, writing, speaking. If a new practice gets developed, it is going to be developed out of these four. So it does not really matter if you Here, if you get advice such as, you know, uh, do this. This is a new kind of a practice that I developed. There's nothing like that. Yes, this could be true that a new practice has been developed, but it would be related with those four pillars. One more thing that is very important to note, that it primarily depends on your level as well as your ultimate goal. So suppose that you ask me, how to be an effective speaker. I might say that stop speaking, abandon speaking for a month or so. Focus on listening only. I would say this. Honestly, I'm saying this. I would advise this if I were asked such a question. Now, do remember what I said earlier before saying this, before presenting with the scenario, that you should be clear with your current level as well as your ultimate goal. If your current level is a beginner and now your ultimate goal is just to speak casually, this advice of mine, which is when I said that just focus on listening and not on speaking entirely, this advice of mine is going to destroy your English journey. Because if you're just up for upskilling yourself to a casual speaker, this advice that I just said is meant for people who take it seriously, who are willing to maybe learn a new accent, maybe learn a new way of speaking. These are heavy words, believe me. Learning a new accent or learning a new way of speaking, these are heavy terms, not meant for casual speakers, not meant for casual learners. So if I accidentally give such an advice to such a person who is, you know, constantly listening to me, who've been listening to me constantly, who actually would care for what I say, their English journey is almost destroyed, because this kind of advice is not meant for casual learners. So that is why I consider that this is such a, you know you could say, such a terrible thing to say, such a terrible thing to ask, you know how to improve. You already know what the answer is. Just keep practicing, just keep doing what you're doing. Of course, you should be practicing with the right people. That's very important. You shouldn't be wasting time with people who are lower, who are having lower level as you, lower than yours. So that's not what I suggest anybody. I guess this is pretty much it. This was a raw talk. I wanted to have this one of these talks. I just did the previous one, which was also raw talk. It was all unscripted and uncut. There was nothing that I had planned on earlier besides the topic. So that is about it. Appreciate your time. Thanks. Thank you very much for the time.